Jaya Om Vishnu Pada Parahamsa Paravaikacharya Ashtatora Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnu Pada Parahamsa Paravaikacharya Ashtatora Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskcon founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koiti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Seka Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhagun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Chaitanya. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Nasta preshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishti. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto, chapter 16, entitled The Payovrata Process of Worship. Many kinds of vratas. This is the Payovrata. Truly pays off. So, does anyone remember where we are in the 8th canto? Starting back from... Gaur, would you like to say?
So Bali Maharaj, who is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, after being killed by the demigods, was revived by his spiritual master Shukracharya. And then out of gratitude he served him very well. And then Shukracharya blessed him with a benediction and he gave him so much power. So Bali Maharaj he became unconquerable. So he came back to fight against the demigods, and basically there was no fight because the demigods were like, all right, we got to get out of here. Brihaspati told them that they couldn't win, so Indra left. And Bali Maharaj was ruling. He conquered the 3 planetary systems, and now he's just ruling there. And I think this chapter will start off with Aditi, the mother of the demigods. She's upset, so she's trying to ask her husband for a way that she can get vengeance against Bali Maharaj and get her son back in his place.
The unending swinging of good and evil back and forth. The demons take hand, and the demigods take the hand, and then back to the demons in power. So, Gaura very nicely explained how Shukracharya, the spiritual master of the demons, he blessed them. So this is what happens when we serve our superiors nicely. They bless us. And they bless us with vitality, with strength, with intelligence, with potency, with clarity, with an ability to achieve our goals. And it's simply by this mercy, by this blessing, that things come to pass. So even someone like Bali Maharaj, who is of the demoniac class, which is by nature subordinate to the demigods, they are able to easily overcome them in such a way that demigods didn't even try to fight. It was like no chance. And this was just because of the blessings of his Guru Maharaj. It's very important for us to understand that we need the mercy of the devotees. We need the mercy of the Lord, even to perform our own side of the bargain. Even to perform our own service, to perform our own worship, to perform our own focus of our own attention. We need the mercy of our superiors. So this chapter really exemplifies that, because then what does Aditi do? Well, she goes to her superior and says, I am in distress, please help me, describe to me what I can do. And he gives her a process and she fulfills it, and they get Vamanadev. So back and forth. It's people asking their acharyas, asking their teachers, their realized souls, how do I be happy in this world? And those souls departing exemplary knowledge due to what they've learned from their teachers, and then following that process and realizing true happiness and beginning to pass it on. Our param process. And this is the perfection of the telephone game. Actually, that it's qualitative. So it's whether you understand it fully or not, the execution of it with faith achieves the results. That's why it's better than telephone. Because you perform it. You say, okay, you're obviously there's a prayer like this, there's a bhajan that, oh Nityananda, you are the most ecstatic personality in the universe. Therefore, I have come to you to please make me happy. I am in great sorrow, so you please make me happy. So this is Guru, is someone who is experiencing the bliss. We say, I'm Guru Devaya Krishnaya, Krishna Nandaya. This is the Guru Maharaj is experiencing the bliss of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Ananda. And it's because of that that they can teach us, okay, you're happy, that means you know how to be happy. And therefore, from your realization, you can impart that same knowledge, that same mentality that allows one to be happy. And then you get this mentality, and then you execute it over time. It's not like, some of these gurus, they put the hand on you and zap enlightenment into your bones. No hug, sorry, to become enlightened. It's no, here's a mentality, here's a devotional attitude, here's a process. Now you do it over time. And even performing it perfectly over time is necessary. Even when we chant perfect rounds, even when we have that perfect morning program, that perfect study session, that perfect mentality, we have a perfect day, still the next day you have to do it again. You have to do it again. So it's a process of deepening the realization of the same knowledge that we get on day one, basically. Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that spiritual advancement means removal of doubts, or in other words, increase of faith, or increase of realization, that the new bhakta and the great soul has relatively the same basic knowledge. You can come in here for a few classes and get the gist of what we're doing. But it takes time of living that, of telling yourself the same thing every day, telling your mind the same thing every day. This is how I want to live. This is how I want to see this situation. These are the principles that I'm sticking to in this situation. This is the right way to behave, or the right way to process or cope with these situations. And you just tell yourself the same thing every day, and you keep living like that. And it becomes your fibers of your being. We were talking the other day, moral fibers. It's something that's built. It's something that's ingrained. It's something that's trained. We're coming from a society that has relatively no moral fibers, or few and far between. And the ones that we do are based on, imperfect knowledge. Sometimes they're twisted or double standard, So we have to train these things. That this perfect state of being is inherent in everyone. Jivera Swarupoi Nityera Krishna Das, that every living being, the little fly that sits on your leg, or the cockroach that runs across the room, or the microbes that are in your stomach, they're all eternal devotees of Krishna, pure and peaceful and satisfied, but they're covered over and have forgotten. So by this training, it's like the baby learning to walk. Prabhupada gives this example that the human child has the inherent ability to walk, and still at the same time, due to its immaturity of development, it stumbles and falls. But it's not that you're learning something new. It's inherent in the baby, and yet at the same time it needs to practice. It needs to learn, it needs to train, it needs the parent to hold their hands and walk them out here. Okay, there's one wobbly step, there's another wobbly step. Oh, okay, you're down, oh, but you're back up again, wipe the tears away, it's okay, goo goo gaga, So our superiors, they're holding our hands, they're saying, come on, you can sing, lead the kirtan, and you're like, I don't know, you're like, and maybe there's some tears involved, but that's okay. You get back up and you keep walking, and before you know it, you're running a triathlon or something. Super high jumping. So that super high jumper was one time a stumbling, fumbling, rumbling baby with tears pouring out of more holes than you knew were in the human body. Snot coming out of places you didn't know it came out of. So we're like that. We're spiritual babies when we come. We're spiritual babies. So we're learning to spiritually walk by our spiritual parents. And therefore, we can let ourselves off the hook a little bit and be confident that I just performed this process nicely and continually, and gradually I will start to walk more comfortably and, do some improv and individualization and realize my full uninhibited self. So we're all here for mutual purification. We're here being purified together by simply giving our attention, our heart, and our mind to this wonderful process and doing it as best as we can. Hare Krishna. This is Intro to Krishna Consciousness. And it's amazing that we're reading about this because Aditi, the mother of the demigods, imagine how great a personality this is. She's the mother of God, eventually. The mother of Indra, the mother of Vayu. I mean, these are people beyond any kind of power we could ever imagine. And she's their mother, their original guru, their superior. And here she is, asking the same things. I am sad. I don't know how to be happy. What do I do? And then Kashyapa Muni is going to explain the same thing that we just said. Let's go to our verse. Api vakulasham kinchin griheshu grihamedini dharmasyartasya kamasya yatta yogo yayoginam api vakulasham kinchin griheshu grihamedini dharmasyartasya kamasya yatra yogo yayoginam api vakulasham kinchin griheshu grihamedini dharmasyartasya kamasya yatta yogo yayoginam. And devotees, abhivakushalam kinchin griheshu grihamedini Dharmasya dharmasya kamasya yatra yoga yoginam abhivakul sankichid griheshu grihamedini dharmasyartasya kamasya yatra yogo yayoginam abhivakushalam kinchid griheshu grihamedini dharmasyartasya kamasya yatra yogo yayoginam. Anyone else? Synonyms. Api, I am wondering. Va, either. Akushalam, inauspiciousness. Kinchit, some. Griheshu, home. Grihamedini, O my wife, who are attached to household life. Dharmasya, of the principles of religion. Artasya, the economic condition. Kamasya, satisfaction of desires. Yatra, home. Yoga, result of meditation. He, indeed, ayoginam, even of those who are not transcendentalists. So the situation here is Kashyapa Muni, the great sage, one of the original beings of the universe, was off meditating, as those people often do. And it was about 1,000 years. So in the meantime, Aditi, his wife, was at the home, attending to the duties, keeping it up. And he comes back to see things are in disarray. And it's like, that's unusual. What's going on here? So when he sees his wife, she's completely morose and depressed, and he's asking her, what happened? Did this happen? Did that happen? And he goes through all the different causes of inauspiciousness, all the things that might cause one to become depressed. And it's very interesting, the things that he's guessing. So we could go to our verse. Translation. He says, O my wife, who are very much attached to household life, if the principles of religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses are properly followed in household life, then one's activities are as good as those of a transcendentalist. I wonder whether there have been any discrepancies in following these principles. Please repeat, O my wife, who are very much attached to household life, if the principles of religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses are properly followed in household life, then one's activities are as good as those of a transcendentalist. I wonder whether there have been any discrepancies in following these principles. Someone want to read the purport?
Purport. In this verse, Aditi has been addressed by her husband Kashyapa Muni as Griha Medini, which means one who is satisfied in household life for sense gratification. Generally, those who are in household life pursue sense gratification in the field of activities performed for material results. Such Griha Medis have only one aim in life, sense gratification. Therefore it is said, Yan Maitu Nadi Grihamedi Sukham Hi Tucham Tukam. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.9.45. The householder's life is based on sense gratification, and therefore the happiness derived from it is very meager. Nonetheless, the Vedic process is so comprehensive that even in householder life, one can adjust his activities according to the regulative principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. One's aim should be to achieve liberation, But because one cannot at once give up sense gratification, in the Shastras there are injunctions prescribing how to follow the principles of religion, economic development, and sense gratification. As explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 129, Dharmasya hi apavargyasya narto ritayo pakalpate. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Those who are in household life should not think that religion is meant to improve the process of the householder's sense gratification. Household life is also meant for advancement in spiritual understanding, by which one can ultimately gain liberation from the material clutches. One should remain in household life with the aim of understanding the ultimate goal of life, tattva jigyasa. Then household life is as good as the life of a yogi. Kashyapa Muni therefore inquired from his wife whether the principles of religion, economic development, and sense gratification were being properly followed in terms of the Shastric injunctions. As soon as one deviates from the injunctions of the Shastra, the purpose of household life is immediately lost in confusion.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Api Vakulasham Kinchit Griheshu Grihamedini Dharmas Yartas Sakamasya Yato Yogo Yayoginam. The home is supposed to be a wonderful place. Has anyone come home from school or from work and found things in disarray and just feel like, oh no. Well, here we go. It's meant to be a sanctuary. In fact, all places for the spiritualist is meant to be an ashram. That's why we call it ashram. A place of spiritual sanctity, shelter. Amen. So there's ways to do this, and the principles can be applied in any ashram that we find ourselves. So before this verse, Kashyapa Muni asked her, is there any inauspiciousness that has taken place in regard to the religious principles? Meaning, if you violate the principles of morality, then certainly you will incur some dissatisfaction. Will feel less than, oh, I didn't do good. Because our natural state is one of impeccable character, of exemplary action, of upliftment. There's a sequence in the Bhagavad Gita. It's something along the lines of when people perform proper action, the world is satisfied with them. When the world is satisfied with them, their mind is peaceful. When their mind is peaceful, they can focus on the Lord. It's something along those lines. So then the opposite is true. When we do something out of character, something shady, something we regret, something harmful or causing anxiety for others, then we feel it. If even on a subconscious level, there's some dissatisfaction, we suddenly feel uncomfortable in our skin, kind of mentally sporadic, not as clear, not as focused. So the beginning stages of yoga, the first rungs of the yoga ladder, are yama and niyama. You know this one? What are the yamas and niyamas? You give him a mic.
I'm not too sure on the order, but it's more so dealing with like your outside world, like the society and how you interact with that. Once you get that down, you can start focusing on yourself. So getting your surroundings in control really, really matters, and that's what you can take daily. So
yeah. Kind of like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, basically.
Yama is like things that you do, and niyama is things that you don't do. Yama, niyama.
Oh, okay.
So like the 10 Commandments in a sense, the do's and the don'ts, that if you perform proper activities, and these are things like ahimsa, truthfulness, charity, celibacy. So these principles are the foundation of yoga. Remember what yoga means?
To connect.
To connect. So if your goal is to connect with the Supreme, the first thing you got to do is regulate your mind and senses. Yama, niyama, do's and don'ts, principles of life, proper action, avoid improper action, be of good character. And why? Because if you do these things, then there's a chance of the mind becoming peaceful. After that is what? Asana, pranayam, pratyahara. You start going deeper and deeper into meditation, dhyana, dharana, samadhi. Jai. So the first thing is of good character, to perform our religious principles, to be a good person, essentially. Then there's a chance of the mind and the senses to be okay. Then there's a chance of interacting with the world in a smooth, harmonious way. So first thing, Kashyapa Muni asked, was there any inauspiciousness that took place in regard to your religious principles? Next thing he asked, was there any auspiciousness that took place in regard to the Brahmanas? Now this is an important point. Krishna is the protector of the Brahmanas. He loves those who preach his glories, those who hold the spiritual purity of the world. So this can be taken in two ways. One is, were the Brahmanas mistreated? Did you not take care of the Brahmanas? Are the Brahmanas in a troubling, anxiety-ridden condition? If this is the case, society will not be happy. There will be hell to pay. If we're not taking care of the saintly persons, there's certainly reactions. Second thing is, are the Brahmanas not performing their duties properly? So the degradation of society, Kali Yuga, began with Shringi, the Brahmanas, this Brahmin boy who improperly utilized his Brahminical power to curse the king in an overreaction. It caused the start of Kali. So the beginning of degradation is with the Brahmanas, the head of society. The head of society is not thinking straight. If they're not maintaining the proper standard, then everything collapses. Everything crumbles. So, this was his next question. You're performing your duties properly, okay. So are the heads of society performing their duties properly? And are we treating them with respect? Next thing he says, are the people in general doing okay? So we go, okay, the heads of society, maybe they're doing okay. But are the people suffering? Because if the people are suffering, we're also suffering. It's natural. You go out there and you see so much strife, so much injustice, so much unfairness going on, so much exploitation going on. How can you be satisfied? How can anyone be satisfied? If they even neglect it, still underneath, it's like, this isn't right, you know? And it allows irreligion to spread. Okay, well, these people are loitering the streets and exploiting one another, and, they're getting up on the other guys, and they're, putting their Nike shoes in sweatshops, and, we know these things, so we think, okay, this is just how business works, this is part of the trade, part of the game. So you build your own sort of moral standard just on kind of what works to get the most money without the most grief. And you supplement it with pills. So this is what's happening. Are the people in general okay? And then he goes into today's verse, following the duties of household life. And we'll go into that in a short bit, but I want to pull out the next principle that he pulls out before he goes into more about household life. The next thing that he asks about is, were uninvited guests improperly welcomed? Isn't that interesting? There's a saying in India, I forget the Hindi version, but it's, the guest is as good as God. You guys know this one? Priyal, you help me out with the Hindi? Atiti Deva Bhavan. Bhava. Atiti Devo Bhava. The guest is as good as God. If anyone shows up at our place, at our temple, at our home, smiles and nods, then we treat them. We treat them properly. We treat them with respect. We treat them in such a way that they feel like they're part of the family. It said that even if enemies show up at your house, you should treat them in such a way that they forget your enemies. at least for that time. So does anyone know the Vedic way of receiving guests? There's 3 main factors to receiving a guest properly.
I think you offer them a seat, something to drink,
Mm-hmm.
compliment them.
Yeah. A place to sit. Come in, have a seat, please, right here. And we took a Vaishnav etiquette class, and they were explaining how it's special to offer a specific seat. Like, this one's for you. Come here, sit here. This is your seat. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, if you're just like, yeah, sit anywhere, it's less. So come in, have a seat right here. We've been, you know, happy to have you. Then you bring them water, something to drink. Can I give you, you know, something to drink? And another thing is get it and bring it. Bring it here. Would you like a glass of water? There's some water for you. Whether they drink it or not, that's up to them. But you always bring it. There's something to refresh you. It's in, huh? It's in the kitchen. You can go get it. Yeah. There's water over there. You can sit over there. There's an energetic thing when you travel and you get to some place to take. It's like it's a settling thing. You know, you've been moving, so now let me settle. Some water or some prasadam or something, it like grounds you. It's like, okay, now we're here. We can start this new phase. So you come in here, this is your seat. Here's some water. It's very nice to see you. You look so good, or anything, you know, how has things been? And in this way, someone can feel like a king. And it said that if you don't have a seat, then, you know, pull something, pull a rug out, pull a pad out, put your shirt down, you know, anything like that. It's the gesture, you know, if you don't have anything, at least some kind words. It's so nice to see you. Please come in. How are you doing? How is your family? You know, how is your travels, like that. And it's revolutionary. You know, I learned these things when I went to my parents' house. I was there, and they had some friends over, and my mom was upstairs or something, and they knocked, and they kind of opened the door like, hello, and then my mom like yelled out, come in, you know. And then she kind of like wandered in and was there, and I was eating lunch or breakfast, one of the two. And I was like, okay, you know, I know, hey, come in, have a seat, you know, here's some water. And we got to talking, and they felt like it was just so nice, you know, it changed the mood of the whole environment. And I was thinking, wow, just this simple knowledge, you know, it changes everything. This is the Vedic culture. We know how to pacify people's minds and senses. We read in the Isha the other day that the message of Bhagavad Gita is pacifying the material nature. Isn't that beautiful? He said these people they're opening their schools, and they're posing their psychological theories, and they're making medical advancements, technology, to try to pacify material nature. But because they're doing it from a material perspective, from their own mind, they're simply agitating it further and further. Here's some new app to make your day easier, and then you become glued to your phone, you get headaches and all sorts of things. But the message of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes, is actually pacifying the material nature. That this transcendental vibration going out in the world, we just had our Bhadra campaign, you know, by Sheshika Prabhu. This is the panacea. This vibration is the only way to actually pacify the raging material nature. So this is our superpower as devotees of Krishna, as followers of the Vedic tradition, is that we know how to live properly in such a way that not only ourselves, but everyone we come in contact becomes pacified. Because they're realigned in their proper way of being. That make sense? Okay, any questions on these points before we dive into the Grihamedi? Yes, Ms. Pignate.
It's more of a comment. So some of my friends, they kind of got it backwards. They're like, oh, you're like family. You can just come in and do whatever you want. It's like exactly what you did. I'm like, oh wait, you got any water? And they're like, oh yeah, it's in the kitchen. As they're playing video games. That's why I was like, oh my God, I've seen the exact scenario. And like, just like, oh yeah, come on in, do whatever you want. Jai Shishi Radha Nila Madhava, Jai Radhagiri Gaya, Jai Giri Govardhan, Jai Nitya Chaitanya Chanda Nitya Gaurachandra, Jai. And it was like yeah, we're close, but I don't feel very cared for at all.
Mm.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, you can come over whenever you want, say whatever you want. I'm like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah. It's neglect, actually. Yeah. You know, it's one thing if people have been there often, like you come over every day and it's just kind of like a thing and you know where things are and you know. But no, we're personal. We're personal. It's actually an impersonal way of being, to just, okay, you do whatever you do and I'll do whatever I do, and we don't acknowledge each other's existence. That as souls, we flourish, we radiate, we relax when we're accepted. And accepted is an acknowledgement and then an agreement, rather than a neglect. It's not quite being accepted into the space, it's just like not being rejected. Does that make sense? Yeah. Should I go? You know, just they won't even notice, you know. Yeah, so you know, look at the ultimate goal of the impersonalists. They have no positive understanding of reality. It's simply negating. Okay, well, stop the suffering. I'm not going to attack you, okay? But I'm not going to really love you either. So the devotee, the personalist, the follower of their guru is one that knows how to engage with others in such a way that they feel accepted, they feel cared for, and they're able to tolerate. So it's an easier platform to just tolerate in the way that the impersonalists do, because you don't have to engage, you don't have to open yourself up, you don't have to even acknowledge that there's anything wrong. You know, you could just, whatever, you know, whatever. Like something crashed in the kitchen, yeah, whatever. It's like, it's just, it's easier. And so we often fall into that thinking that it's advancement. But more advanced than that is actually engaging with the agitation, engaging with the emotional problems, engaging with the anxiety, and continuing to love through it. Finding that place underneath those things that is spiritual, that is unified, and is beautiful, and connecting with that thing. And that takes a lot of process or practice, and it comes naturally as a byproduct when we're connected with the Lord, because it's by that connection that we become purified. So when we're chanting attentively, when we're hearing attentively, we're actually engaging in a relationship, and all of the nasty stuff that we feel is coming out and being purified. And if it's, you know, with another conditioned soul, all the nasty stuff that they feel is coming up and being purified. So that's why our daily sadhana practice is so paramount, because Krishna is completely pure. So it's just good, like we're just being improved. There's no tolerance that needs to be there on our part of his personality. He's the all-purifying personality, pavitram paramam bhavam, or pavitram param uttamam, the supreme pure of all pures. So just coming in contact with him in any way, shape, or form, it allows us, we grab onto that, and it allows these things to come out and be removed. Becoming expert personalists is the call of the hour. And by becoming expert personalists, we can see the purity of devotees in all of their different ashrams, walks of life, activities of life, varnas of life. And we can understand the meaning of this verse, that those who are very much attached to household life, if the principles of religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses are properly followed, then one's activities are as good as those of a transcendentalist. I wonder whether there has been any discrepancy in following these principles. What a statement. Those who are attached to householder life, if they're following the principles of Dharma, you could say, to sum it up, then their activities are as good as those of a transcendentalist. So what does this mean? How can that be? Someone who's attached is as good as a transcendental person? It's because of this sentence in the purport. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Prabhupada said this is the most important verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Wow. They asked him, what's the most important verse? He said this one. Dharmasya hyapavargasya narto ratayo pakalpate. All occupational engagements should be meant for liberation, Krishna consciousness, prema bhakti. They should never be performed for material gain. So, what this means is, when we're focused in our relationship with Krishna, whatever setting or context that we're in is irrelevant. Is irrelevant. So if we're focusing every moment, 24/7, on becoming more Krishna conscious, serving the Lord, performing the missionary activities, performing the prescribed duties that are given to us for the pleasure of the Lord, if we're focused on Krishna, doing our duties, then it doesn't matter what the setting is, what body we're in, what ashram we're in, what varna we're in. It doesn't matter. Because the experience of the person is the same. I'm serving Krishna with whatever is around me. So the different settings is there to pacify the mind and senses so that they can remain in that Krishna conscious state. That if I'm in this setting, things are going to be really distracting. They're going to be really pulling. So I remove myself from that setting. I practice Krishna consciousness in this setting. But other people, is if I'm in that setting, then these things actually calm me. They make me feel comfortable. They make me feel okay. I can be myself much easier. I can focus. Now, the important thing is that I can focus. I'm doing my Krishna consciousness duties in any setting that I'm in. And by being in that setting, it purifies the attachment to that setting. One can be attached to the renounced order of life also. They can be attached to being alone. They can be attached to their activities. It can be attached to the mentality that goes to it. It's a little bit more internal, but it's still an upadi, it's still a designation. And in the Grihastha ashram, of course, there's many attachments. And we think that, okay, I'm attached to these things, so let me do them in Krishna consciousness, and I'll purify them. But this doesn't mean let me enjoy them on a mental, sensual platform, and that will pacify me. Okay, I want the association of the opposite sex, so we're just going to joke around and have fun and, just be on the mental platform or the sensual platform. And then I'll be, pacified and I can do my... No, that's not how it happens. That's not how it happens. They say satisfying the desires of lust is like pouring gasoline on the fire. You're trying to put it out by pouring gas on the fire. It'll inflame it more and more. So it's not by engaging with the objects of the senses for the sake of sensual stimulation, but it's by engaging in Krishna consciousness in this particular context. That you're with a member of the opposite sex and you're serving Krishna. You're in your house with your comforts and your lighting and your whatever, and you're serving Krishna. You're going to work, you're having your money and you're serving Krishna. You're spending on things that you like and you're using it for Krishna. It's not that, okay, Prabhupada says it's a license for sense gratification, but it's not like I can do any damn thing. No, it's still that you have to be in the mindset, I'm serving Krishna every moment. And your attachment to those things will be purified by engaging with them in that mindset of I'm serving Krishna. Your attachment to the opposite sex will be purified by serving Krishna with them. Your attachment to your comforts, your stuffed animals or your fluffy pillows or your nice color lightings or whatever it is, it's purified by serving Krishna in that environment. Because if we're engaging our mind and senses in the service of that, then we're developing an attachment to that. But if we're serving with our mind and senses to Krishna, we're developing an attachment to Krishna. And over time, that attachment to Krishna just consumes our whole being, and then it becomes that it doesn't matter where I am, because I want to be with Krishna, or I can be with Krishna. So these These principles are learned in the beginning stages of life. This is the absolute amazing quality of the brahmacharya ashram. It's the absolute essential necessity of the brahmacharya ashram, and it's the absolute purpose and mentality, things to focus on and develop in the brahmacharya ashram. The brahmacharya is something that is continual through all other ashrams of life. It's not that you do this thing, okay, now I do this thing, and it's a separate. It builds. It builds. Every single person in the varnashram system is practicing brahmacharya, the principles of brahmacharya. So what does that mean? Essentially, it means following the instructions of a superior. Brahmacharya is a subordinate position. It's the low man on the totem pole, Prabhu would say. They were joking. The grihastas were fallen. They were brahmacharyas and they've fallen. And you would say, how can you fall from brahmacharya? It's already the lowest. So that's the mentality, is that I'm coming in with the idea that I need help. I don't know. I need guidance. Please teach me how to live properly. And then you agree to follow the instructions. You agree to follow the processes given. You agree to be chastised and corrected and trained up for the sake of your own well-being. And then all of the principles that we talked about, the yamas, niyamas, the nonviolence, the celibacy, the truthfulness, the steadiness of mind, not greedy or not accumulating too many things. All of those things are trained into you by the instructions of the spiritual master, by the process given to us by our acharyas, that we're developing these things over time. And as they become fixed, we expand our service maintaining these same principles. And that means taking up responsibility. So if someone stays a renunciate, they take on project or more missionary responsibilities. They take on students of their own. Someone enters into family life, they take these principles and teach it to their family members, their children, their community. Grihas is a network. So you maintain these principles everywhere you go. And whatever is your attachments, they'll be purified by maintaining these principles, maintaining this addiction to Krishna, this service mentality to Krishna in that scenario. In that scenario. So in recap, it's imperative for us to instill the transcendental loving service of the Lord in our minds and hearts, the complete faith that by keeping Krishna the center of all that we do will release our original blissful state of existence. And learning the principles that are taught, the principles of brahmacharya, as soon as we can and as deeply as we can, and maintaining those throughout our lifetime will certainly allow one to be happy in any situation of life. And this is how household life is as good as the life of a yogi. Let's read this. Household life is also meant for advancement in spiritual understanding, by which one can ultimately gain liberation from the material clutches. One should remain in household life with the aim of understanding the ultimate goal of life. Then household life is as good as the life of a yogi. So the point is that householders can be as good as transcendentalists if they are also transcendental. And a quote-unquote, I'll say, and a renunciate is less than a transcendentalist if they're not transcendental. So that's the thing, is our spiritual advancement is separate from our material condition, material situation. Like that. Hare Krishna. Ki Jai.
I just thought to follow that thread a little further, and I went to the verse 129, and the next verse mentions how life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation.
Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's work. And then the purport, a little section. The Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation, and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. I thought that was nice, that it's like one engaged in family life, it should be so much leaning towards their search for the absolute truth that like the family maintenance is simply something they're doing to maintain their livelihood and keep going. But just such a major portion is actually searching for the absolute truth. And
yeah, well said, man. Family planning is accomplished by searching after the absolute truth. Yeah. So from the very beginning, whenever we start, put all of your time and energy, or as much as you can allocate into searching after the absolute truth, understanding the absolute reality, and remaining in the absolute reality, and that will solve everything. That will put everything in the proper perspective. And we'll be protected from misaction, because misaction takes us away from that pursuance. So you stay focused on that pursuance, naturally misaction will be unattractive to you. Jai. Nando.
Hare Krishna. I was just reflecting on that, thank God for devotee association, because the things that, these kind of, the level that Srila Prabhupada wants us to come to, and the level that will really, the only level that's gonna actually make us happy, it seems like kind of intense. And it is intense for a person who's attached to the material energy. But with devotee association, it becomes easy, especially with really like-minded and serious devotees and loving devotees. It becomes totally doable. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, this gradual process. I remember some speaker gave a count of how many times Prabhupada used the word gradual in the Bhagavad Gita. It was something like 72 or something like that. It was a lot of times. This is a gradual process, but it's one where you're fully engaging in it every moment that you're doing it. It's not it's a perfect practice over time like that. Yeah. Joe, did you have something? Anybody else? Any other reflections? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.